where is the PowerPoint presentation?
Παρακαλώ να δω την παρουσίασή μου. Αγαπητοί προσκεκλημένοι, κυρίες και κύριοι, καλημέρα σας. Είναι χαρά μου να βρίσκομαι σήμερα εδώ. Ευχαριστώ, Κρίστιαν, για αυτή την πρόσκληση. Είναι χαρά και τιμή μου να ομιλώ σήμερα ενώπιόν σας. Μου ζήτησαν να μιλήσω ελληνικά, αλλά έχω κρατήσει τις διαφάνειες στα αγγλικά, έτσι ώστε να μπορέσουν οι προσκεκλημένοι να παρακολουθήσουν την παρουσίασή μου. Να μιλήσω λίγο για τις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες Αμερικής. Καταρχάς, γιατί κατά τη γνώμη μου αυτό είναι το θέμα που τίθεται στο προσκήνιο σήμερα. I named my presentation Modern Mercantilism or Neo-Mercantilism because this is what is happening today in the international arena. It's like we have shedded our skin in the world, and that's what I realized in the IMF meetings a few days ago. Things have changed, the world has changed, and we are talking about different things now.
All right. So, ας δώσουμε μια ερμηνεία πρώτα.
Let's give a definition to this modern mercantilism. It has to do with trade, right? It's four propositions and a definition at the same time. First of all, governments, they have gained ground. And together with big banks and corporations, especially high-tech corporations, are shaping the new world. This new system is called politicized capitalism. This is quite obvious in the US, but not only there. Secondly, trade deficits are not accepted. They are considered a problem for America and other economies because they believe that in this way they lose wealth and power. Thirdly, another type of politics that comes from the past, import substitution. Countries are starting to get interested in industrial strategy and do not want to leave it to the hands of others. And finally, as Christian said before, we have competition and not cooperation. The epoch or the era of the monetization of power. This is at least what the US does. Now I'll give you some data and I will run through it because we don't have much time. What we have learned to call trade globalization, what you see on the left, it's in a plateau, 55-60%. That means that trade develops together with the GDP but does not grow further than the GDP. Then we have the trade decoupling, what is happening between the United States and China. And you can see that both in inputs and exports, but you can also see that in the capital flows. In other words, we have this decoupling and this reorganization of trade. Trade is not diminishing, but we have a change in the supply chains, in the structure of trade. It is well known that we have an increase in the geopolitical risk. What you see on the left, all studies have shown that it has been rising. And then on the right, you can see that despite the tariff policies of President Trump and other leaders in the world, well, despite all that and despite the initial reciprocal tariffs in April and the impression that was made back then, we haven't had so much impact, and there is an explanation for that. It's not only tariffs. because since 2019, 2021, 22, 23, we have the so-called no tariff trade barriers. These are um, export-related measures, tariff-related measures, and other measures that have to do with
Απλώς ο Τραμπ είναι it's a product of a history. Είναι ένα προϊόν της ιστορίας, το οποίο επανέρχεται, θα λέγε κανείς. Ναι, μαζί με τα tariffs η λογική είναι, εκτός του ότι we don't like deficit, trade deficits, υπάρχει αυτό που λέμε a revival, a resurgence of industrial policy. Αυτό το βλέπετε αριστερά, το βλέπετε όμως mentions of industrial policy in the major business press και κυρίως το βλέπετε στις διαφορετικές rationals που έχει αυτό το πράγμα. Και μάλιστα το climate mitigation είναι στο δεύτερο παράγοντα και αυτό είναι για μένα πολύ ωραίο. Αλλά υπάρχει το strategic competitiveness, geopolitical conscious, global change, national security also, γιατί we are entering in a phase of economic nationalism και να μην το ξεχνάμε αυτό και this is closely related with
Τι λέμε κάνω, ελληνικά ή αγγλικά?
Ποια είναι η δικαιολογία του Πρόεδρου?
What is the excuse of President Trump? President Trump said, I don't like deficits.
Because γιατί όλες
Dollar is very powerful because all the assets, all the investments go to the dollar. And this is a problem that Uzbekistan, as Finance Minister of France mentioned, the exorbitant privilege. Well, this might not be accurate because since 2013, the capital center of United States is decoupling with the current account deficit. The current account deficit could be excused and justified if this capital came into the US. When I hear people say that Greece has a problem with the current account, well, this is not right, because it has to do with growth differentiation and the exchange rate and the capital flowing into Greece. So it's not this. The problem of Greece is not that. Now, let's look at the problem in the US. On the right, you will see the budget deficit. This is called the twin deficits. The budget deficit is creating the deficit. And that's what goes behind this logic. If you want to reduce or do away with the trade deficit, you have to go first and reduce the budget deficit. Because, however, this politically is not right because they will lose the elections. Already yesterday, they lost the elections in several states. And there is a slight improvement there, but it's only 6.5%. This is what Christian and others said before. The GDP growth outperformed peers in the US. The productivity is 30% up, so productivity creates growth. And Spiros Theodoropoulos and you, Kostas, are right. To increase wages, we have to increase productivity. Otherwise, what will happen? Inflation and a deficit in the current account. Why has this happened? As simple as that. Computer electronic investments up, and then 9 out of 10 of companies are in the United States. The true story, we know that. What can we do, however? This is quite obvious here. I could not resist the temptation to show you what is coming. In the next 2 to 3 years or 5 years, we will talk about the tokenized blockchain capitalism, and nobody will know who the investor is, who is the investor for each one of us. This is the so-called token. Those who are afraid of privacy issues are not right in Europe because with the tokenized economy you don't have privacy issues. And you can see that further down here on the left. Look, tariffs in the past worked. In 2018, 2019, Trump actually introduced tariffs. And this is not simple. There is this demassification of industry. And Trump doesn't like the right part because it shows that manufacturing is going down and employment goes down because of new technologies and robotics and all these kind of things. It's normal to have manufacturing going down. It's 8 to 9% on the GDP and then 10 to 11%.
Υπάρχουν πολλοί που λένε ότι
Let me make a parenthesis. Some people say that Greece is tourism and real estate. This is not right. Manufacturing is around 9% for you, Mr. Hadjiminas. For me, it's 10. In Portugal and Spain, we have 11, 12%. So we are not far away from them. We do produce despite the fact that we don't have planning, space planning, spatial planning, let's say, of industry. Anyway, the tariffs that Trump introduced in 1819 did not go well. This is a general trend to remain low. Now, how do importers react in the US as regards tariffs? And that's quite important, I would say. In 1819, they undervalued their renminbi and their currency. And now what are they doing? They are lowering prices. That's why you don't see inflation in the US because of the tariffs. That's important. Passenger cards down 15%. That's interesting. What I said at the beginning, that tariffs have not created a turmoil. This is how I interpret it. Look at the left side of this slide. President Trump introduced tariffs of 2025, which is in average 18-19%. If you see that and compare it with other times, for example, 1993, which is the Clinton administration, we had tariffs. It was not awful. It wasn't awful. I mean, until now, it's not been awful. I don't know how things will go, but I exclude turmoil with China because the Americans are convinced that they cannot trade with China because China will eat our lunch. That's what they say, but that's another story.
εξηγεί γιατί η Ευρώπη φέρθηκε έτσι.
On the right, you can see why Europe behaved like that. The US is a big market. Look at the consumption and expenditure. And this is very big for Europe. 20% is European imports. What does it mean in theory? There is a monopsony, partial monopsony.
The market of the United States is a monopsony for you.
The market of the US is a monopsony for Europe. They rely on the US market. It's important for them. And the main secret of the success of tariffs up to now at least is that there is no retaliation. If there is no retaliation and you are a monopsony, there's an optimal tact. I'm a liberal economist, a libertarian.
About the Baltic states, etc. But this is the interpretation I have about that. So it's 20%, and it's Mexico and the others. Do they have revenues? Yes, they do. They come from
Οι άνθρωποι από τις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες που πληρώνουν αυτούς τους φόρους πληρώνουν έναν φόρο κατά αποκοπήν.
And up to
μέχρι το Δεκέμβρη είπαν ότι θα είναι 300 εκατομμύρια και μετά αύξηση. Άρα έχουν κάτι για να καλύψουν το έλλειμμα του προϋπολογισμού. This is what he wants to do, but he is not saying that, and nobody is here to say that. We've shown that they are cutting prices. Κόβουν τις τιμές όπου μπορούν, κόβουν τις τιμές, ρίχνουν τις τιμές για να διεισδύσουν στην αγορά. And the Chinese,
και η πτώση των
on the right, we have a decrease in the inputs and the price. And last but not least, because we've heard and people support that businesses are to blame for inflation. In Καθημερινή they said that, but nobody understands. How can I say that? Anyway, if you see at the prices here on the left, είναι τα κίνητα, τρόφιμα, ενέργεια, μεταφορές. Αλλά εκεί το βασικό θέμα είναι η μισθή. Μετά τον COVID είναι φυσικό να έχουμε αυξημένες τιμές και μετά επιπρόσθετες τιμές προς αυξήσεις, ας πούμε, για το κέρδος. It's not an operational surplus. Έχουμε τους φόρους, την απόσβεση. But if you look at the issues for inflation, που είναι πολύ χαμηλά, it's always the wages. Η μισθή πάνω από την παραγωγικότητα. Πρέπει να δείτε το πραγματικό μισθολογικό κόστος για να δείτε τι γίνεται. This is from my new book.
For those of you, our dears,
για σας, αγαπητοί που είστε από το εξωτερικό, από τη Springer, έχει εκδοθεί το βιβλίο Who is to blame for Greece. Αυτό είναι η ελληνική έκδοση από τον πληθωρισμό στους δασμούς. It's a different era της παγκοσμιοποίησης και της βιομηχανικής οικονομικής τάξης. Thank you very much.